My name is Abigail, and I'm 29. On my wedding day in a sunlit barn with 200 guests, I felt like the world was mine. Aaron, my husband, held my hand, his smile warm. Laughter filled the air as toasts began. Then my sister Celeste grabbed the mic. Her voice sliced through the joy. "I'm pregnant with Aaron's baby," she said. Gasps echoed. Every eye turned to me. I smiled and said, "Perfect timing." I had a secret she didn't know. Have you ever faced a betrayal that tested your strength? Like and subscribe if you've stood tall through pain. Where are you watching from? Let me know below. I'm Abigail, 29, and 6 months before my wedding, I was knee-deep in planning. My apartment smelled of fresh coffee and printer ink with seating charts scattered across the table. I wanted everything perfect, especially for Aaron and me. Celeste, my sister, was the first person I called. I pictured us giggling over flower arrangements like when we were kids. I dialed her number, my heart light. She picked up on the third ring, her voice flat. "I'm busy," she said. "Work's crazy. Maybe another time." I paused, stung, but brushed it off. "She's just stressed," I told myself. I suggested meeting for lunch to talk bridesmaid dresses. She sighed, like I'd asked her to move a mountain. "Fine, I'll try," she muttered before hanging up. I stared at my phone, a knot forming in my chest. Celeste had always been the bold one, the one who lit up rooms. This wasn't her. The engagement party was a week later at a cozy rooftop venue with string lights and jazz in the background. I wore a cream dress, my hair swept up, feeling like I was floating. Aaron mingled his laugh easy, his hand brushing mine whenever he passed. I scanned the crowd for Celeste. She'd promised to help set up, but noon came, then 1, and no sign of her. By 2, when guests were sipping cocktails, she strolled in her heels, clicking. Her dress was tight, her makeup sharp, like she was here to outshine me. "Sorry, traffic," she said, not meeting my eyes. I hugged her anyway, hoping to spark some warmth. She pulled back fast, heading straight for the bar. I watched her, my smile faltering. Something was off, but I couldn't pin it down. As the night went on, Celeste barely spoke to me. She hovered near Aaron, her laughter too loud, her hand grazing his shoulder when she leaned in to whisper. I stood by the dessert table, clutching a glass of wine, trying to shake the unease. She's just being friendly, I thought. Aaron's charming. It's nothing. But my stomach twisted. I caught our cousin Harper watching them too, her brow furrowed. Harper was quiet, always observant, the one who noticed things others missed. I waved her over, hoping for a distraction. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded too quickly, glancing at Celeste. "Just tired," she said, then excused herself to grab a drink. I felt a prickle of doubt, like I was missing something big. Later I stepped outside for air, the city humming below. Voices drifted from the corner of the rooftop. It was Celeste, her tone low, urgent. "I'm planning something big," she was saying. "It'll change everything." I froze, my heart thudding. Harper's voice came next, hesitant. "Are you sure? That sounds risky?" Celeste laughed, sharp and cold. "Trust me, it's perfect." I stepped closer, but they went quiet, like they sensed me. When I rounded the corner, Celeste's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing out here?" she asked, her voice accusing. "Just needed air," I said, forcing a smile. Harper looked at the ground, her hands twisting. The air felt thick, like a storm was coming. Back inside, I found Aaron by the photo booth, laughing with friends. I pulled him aside, my voice low. "Did Celeste seem weird to you?" He frowned, like I'd caught him off guard. "She's just being Celeste," he said. "Dramatic, you know." His answer felt too quick, his eyes darting away. I nodded, but the knot in my chest tightened. That night, as I lay in bed, Aaron's arm around me, I couldn't sleep. Celeste's words echoed. Something big. What was she planning? Was it about the wedding, or worse, about Aaron? I pushed the thought away, but it lingered sharp and cold, like a splinter I couldn't reach. The morning after the engagement party, I woke to sunlight streaming through my apartment blinds, but the weight in my chest hadn't lifted. Aaron was already up, flipping pancakes in the kitchen, humming softly. I watched him searching for reassurance in his familiar movements. His smile was warm when he saw me, but I couldn't shake Celeste's voice from last night, her cryptic words about something big. I poured coffee, my hands unsteady, and decided to try talking to her again. Maybe I'd misread her. Maybe she was just caught up in her own world. I texted Celeste, keeping it light. "Can we grab coffee today? Need your input on the cake flavors." Her reply came hours later, short and cold. "Got plans. Pick whatever." My throat tightened. This wasn't just her being busy. It felt personal, like she was pushing me away on purpose. I scrolled through our old messages, hoping for a clue. There were photos from last summer, us at the beach, her arm around me, both of us laughing. Where had that Celeste gone? I set my phone down, telling myself to focus on the wedding, but her distance gnawed at me. That afternoon, I drove to the florist alone, the radio low. I'd hoped Celeste would come, picturing us debating roses versus peonies like we used to plan our fake weddings as kids. Instead, I sat in the shop, flipping through catalogs, my mind elsewhere. The florist, a kind woman named Marjorie, noticed my distraction. "Everything okay, hun?" she asked, her eyes soft. I forced a smile, nodding, but my thoughts were on Celeste's behavior at the party, her hand on Aaron's shoulder, her sharp laugh. I left with a deposit on white lilies, but no clarity. Back home, I found a stack of engagement party photos on the counter, printed for our guest book. I flipped through them, pausing at one of Aaron and Celeste by the bar. Her head was tilted close to his, her smile wide, his hand resting on the counter near hers. It wasn't much, but it felt like too much. My pulse quickened. I tucked the photo away, not ready to face what it might mean. Instead, I called Harper, hoping she'd shed light on what I'd overheard. Her voice was cautious when she answered. "Hey, Abigail," she said, like she'd been expecting this. I didn't waste time. "Harper, what was Celeste talking about last night? That's something big." There was a long pause, the kind that says more than words. "She's just going through stuff," Harper finally said. "You know how she gets." I pressed harder. "Going through what, Harper? If you know something, tell me." She sighed, her voice dropping. "Look, she's been weird about the wedding. Jealous, maybe. But it's not my place. I'm sorry." My stomach dropped. Jealous of me. Harper's words hung heavy, stirring memories of our childhood, when Celeste always had to be the center of attention, even at my birthdays. I thanked Harper and hung up, my mind racing. Was Celeste's coldness about the wedding? Or was it Aaron? I paced the living room, the photo burning a hole in my thoughts. I wanted to confront Celeste to demand answers, but the idea of her shutting me out completely stopped me. Instead, I went to find Aaron, who was reading on the couch. I sat beside him, my voice steady but tight. "Aaron, has Celeste been texting you?" He looked up, surprised, then shrugged. "Not really. Just random stuff." "Why?" His casual tone didn't match the tension in his eyes. I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. "She's been acting strange. Like she's upset with me. Or us." "Did you notice anything at the party?" He closed his book, his jaw tight. "Abigail, you're overthinking this. She's your sister. She's probably just busy." His dismissal stung, like he was brushing off my instincts. I nodded, not wanting to push, but the doubt grew sharper. That night I lay awake again, the photo and Harper's words circling in my head. Celeste was planning something, and Aaron's vague answers weren't helping. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a truth I wasn't ready to face, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. 3 months before the wedding, I was unraveling. The doubt that started at the engagement party had grown claws, digging into every quiet moment. I'm Abigail, 29, and I was supposed to be planning my dream day, but instead I was questioning my sister and my fiancé. That morning I drove to our childhood home to see Dad, hoping his familiar gruff voice would ground me. The house smelled of old books and lemon polish, just like always. Dad, named Gregory, was in the living room, sorting through boxes of faded photos with Celeste. She looked up as I walked in, her smile tight, like she'd been caught. "Hey, Dad," I said, hugging him. "I brought some wedding stuff to go over." He grinned, patting my shoulder. "My little girl all grown up." Celeste snorted, barely audible, but it hit me like a slap. She shuffled photos, her nails clicking against the table. Always about you, isn't it? She muttered. I froze, my cheeks burning. Dad didn't hear or pretended not to, but her words landed heavy. I wanted to snap back to ask what her problem was, but I swallowed it like I always did. Let's talk venues, I said instead, pulling out my binder. Celeste rolled her eyes and left the room, her footsteps sharp on the hardwood. Later, as Dad and I discussed guest lists, Celeste came back leaning against the doorway. Her arms were crossed, her gaze cold. You're really going all out, huh? She said. Must be nice having everyone fawn over you. I clenched my jaw, my patience thinning. It's my wedding, Celeste. I'm allowed to be excited. She laughed short and bitter. Sure, Abigail. Keep playing perfect. She walked out again, leaving a silence that stung. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples. She's just jealous, he said, like it was that simple. His words echoed Harper's, but they didn't comfort me. They made it worse. Jealousy wasn't an excuse for this. The next day, I had a dress fitting at a boutique downtown. The shop was bright mirrors everywhere, racks of lace and silk. I stepped out in a fitted gown, the beading catching the light. The attendant gasped, but Celeste just sat there scrolling her phone. What do you think? I asked, my voice hopeful. She glanced up, her lips pursed. It's fine. A bit much. Don't you think you're trying too hard? My heart sank. I turned away, pretending to adjust the veil. But her words cut deep. She wasn't just distant anymore. She was cruel. That evening I cooked dinner, chopping vegetables with more force than needed. Aaron came home, dropping his keys on the counter. Smells good, he said, kissing my cheek. I forced a smile, but my mind was on Celeste's comments, her resentment. As we ate, I tried to focus on him, but something nagged at me. Aaron, I said, setting down my fork. Has Celeste texted you lately? His eyes flicked up, then back to his plate. Yeah, sometimes. Just random stuff. Why? My stomach twisted. Like what I pressed. He shrugged, poking at his food. Just catching up. Nothing big. I waited, expecting more, but he changed the subject, asking about the dress. His avoidance felt like a wall, and I was on the wrong side of it. After dinner, I couldn't let it go. I grabbed my phone and opened Celeste's social media, something I'd never done before. Her latest post was a selfie. Her smile sharp, captioned, "Taking what's mine." My breath caught. Was it about Aaron, the wedding? I scrolled further, finding more vague posts, each one feeding my unease. One photo showed her at a bar, her arm around a guy who looked vaguely like Aaron from behind. My hands shook. I wanted to call her to demand answers, but fear stopped me. What if I was right? What if she was trying to take everything I loved? I couldn't sleep that night, my phone glowing in the dark as I stared at Celeste's post. Taking what's mine. The words burned, each one a splinter in my mind. I'm Abigail, 29, and I was supposed to be choosing wedding invitations, not spiraling over my sister's cryptic taunts. Aaron slept beside me, his breathing steady, oblivious to the storm in my head. I wanted to shake him awake, to demand he show me every text from Celeste, but the thought of his defensive shrug stopped me. Instead, I slipped out of bed, padding to the living room where moonlight spilled across the floor. I opened my laptop, my hands trembling, and logged into Celeste's social media again. I scrolled deeper past the bar photo, past her smirking selfies. A post from 2 weeks ago caught my eye, a quote about loyalty with a caption, "Some people don't deserve what they have." My chest tightened. Was she talking about me, about Aaron? I clicked on the comments, hoping for clarity, but found none. Just vague praise from strangers and a heart from Harper, our cousin. Harper, who dodged my questions about Celeste's plans. The betrayal stung sharp and personal. The next morning I called Nora, my best friend, needing someone to anchor me. We met at a crowded diner, the clink of dishes filling the silence as I poured out everything: Celeste's cruelty at the dress fitting, Aaron's evasive answers, the social media posts. Nora listened, her brow furrowed, her coffee untouched. "You need to talk to Aaron," she said, her voice firm. "And Celeste, this isn't just in your head, Abigail." I nodded, but my throat closed up. Confronting them meant risking the truth, and I wasn't sure I could handle it. What if Aaron was hiding something? What if Celeste hated me enough to destroy everything I left the diner, my resolve shaky, and drove to our childhood home again? Dad was out, but Celeste was there lounging on the couch, flipping through a magazine. The air felt thick like we were strangers. I sat across from her, clutching the heirloom necklace issue as my excuse. Grandma Evelyn's necklace. I said, my voice steady. I'd like to wear it for the wedding. It means a lot to me. Celeste's eyes flicked up, cold and calculating. It's mine, she said. Mom always said I should have it. I blinked, stunned. Mom had never said that. The necklace was a family heirloom meant for whoever got married first. You're lying, I said, my voice rising. Why are you doing this? Celeste stood, tossing the magazine aside. Doing what? Calling you out. You act like you're perfect, Abigail, but you're not. You don't deserve all this. Her words hit like a fist, each one tearing at the sister I thought I knew. I stood too, my hands shaking. What's wrong with you? I asked. Why do you hate me? She laughed, a sound so bitter it chilled me. Hate you? I'm just tired of living in your shadow. She grabbed her bag and left the door, slamming behind her. I sank onto the couch, the necklace forgotten, her words echoing. Living in my shadow. Was that what she thought? That evening I found Aaron at home, scrolling through his phone. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Aaron, I said, my voice tight. Show me your texts with Celeste. Now. He looked up, his face paling. What? Why, it's nothing, Abigail. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. If it's nothing, show me. He hesitated, his fingers hovering over his phone, then set it down. I deleted them, he said, his voice low. They weren't important. I stared at him, the room spinning. Deleted them? Why would you do that? He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my eyes. I didn't want you to misread anything. She's your sister. I was just being friendly. Friendly. The word felt like a lie, heavy and wrong. I turned away, my eyes burning, and locked myself in the bathroom. Leaning against the sink, I stared at my reflection, barely recognizing the woman looking back. Celeste's hatred, Aaron's secrecy. It was suffocating me. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all I could do was stand there, drowning in doubt. Something was happening, something bigger than I could grasp, and I was terrified of what I'd find if I kept digging. I'm Abigail, 29, and my wedding day was supposed to be a memory stitched with joy. The barn glowed with candlelight tables draped in ivory, the air thick with roses and anticipation. 200 guests watched as I stood beside Aaron, my heart full, my white gown brushing the floor. The toasts had just started, glasses clinking, when Celeste, my sister, pushed through the crowd. Her burgundy maid-of-honor dress shimmered as she snatched the microphone from the best man. The music stopped. Every head turned. My stomach dropped, a warning I couldn't name. I'm pregnant with Aaron's baby, Celeste said, her voice clear, sharp, slicing the room open. Gasps rippled through the guests. A glass shattered somewhere. Aaron's hand slipped from mine, his face draining of color. He opened his mouth, stammering, Abigail, But Celeste cut him off. Her eyes locked on me, a smirk curling her lips. I told you I'd take what's mine, she said, softer. Just for me. The words hit like a punch, echoing her social media post, her bitter taunts from months ago. My knees wobbled, but I stayed upright, the weight of every stare pinning me in place. The room spun, a blur of shocked faces, my coworkers, Aaron's parents, our old high school friends. I saw Dad Gregory at the head table, his mouth open, his hands gripping the chair. Harper. Our cousin stood frozen near the bar, her eyes wide with guilt. I wanted to scream, to run, to tear the mic from Celeste's hands, but my body wouldn't move. My mind raced, replaying every moment, her coldness, Aaron's deleted texts, the photo of them too close. Was it true? Had Aaron betrayed me? Had Celeste planned this all along, waiting for this moment to ruin me? Aaron grabbed my arm, his voice low, desperate. It's not true, Abigail. I swear. I never... His words sounded hollow, like he was trying to convince himself. I pulled away, my eyes still on Celeste. She stood tall, the mic loose in her hand, her smirk unwavering. She'd wanted this, my humiliation. my pain broadcast to everyone I loved. I felt the sting of tears, but I blinked them back. I wouldn't let her see me break. Not here. Not now. I took a step forward, my heels clicking on the wooden floor, the sound loud in the silent room. Every guest leaned in, waiting for me to crumble. I reached for the mic, my hand steady, my voice calmer than I felt. "Perfect timing, Celeste." I said my words slow, deliberate. Her smirk faltered just for a second. I turned to the crowd, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "I've known something was coming," I said. "That's why I hired a private investigator." A murmur ran through the guests, a mix of shock and curiosity. Aaron's eyes widened, his breath catching. Celeste's face tightened, her confidence cracking. "His name is Marcus," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "I met him 6 weeks ago after I found things that didn't add up." I paused, letting the words sink in, watching Celeste's grip on the mic tighten. "I didn't want to believe my own sister could do this," I said, turning to her. But I had to know. The room was still, every eye darting between us. I reached into the small pocket sewn into my gown, pulling out a folded piece of paper, Marcus's report condensed to fit. I held it up, my hand trembling but my resolve firm. "This," I said, "tells a different story." Celeste laughed, but it was forced, high-pitched. "You're pathetic, Abigail," she said, stepping closer. "Making things up to save face. Nobody believes you." I met her gaze, my chest tight with anger and grief. "Then why are you shaking?" I asked, my voice low. Her eyes flickered, and for the first time I saw fear. The guests whispered, some leaning forward, others clutching their partners. I unfolded the paper, my fingers steady now, ready to read the truth aloud. But before I could, Celeste lunged for it, her voice rising. "Give me that!" she hissed, her composure gone. I stepped back, clutching the paper, as Celeste's fingers grazed it, her nails scraping my wrist. The crowd gasped, chairs scraping as people stood there, whispers a rising tide. I'm Abigail, 29, and in that moment, my wedding day became a battlefield. Celeste's eyes blazed, her voice shrill. "You're lying," she shouted, pointing at me. She's always been jealous of me. The accusation stung, twisting the knife of her betrayal. I opened the paper, my voice trembling but clear. "This report," I said, "shows texts between you and Aaron planning to humiliate me today." The barn seemed to shrink, the air heavy with shock. I read aloud, my words cutting through the chaos. "Celeste to Aaron 2 weeks ago. She'll never see it coming." Aaron's reply. "Just don't go too far." My throat burned as I spoke, each message a fresh wound. Aaron staggered back, his hands raised. "I didn't mean it like that," he stammered. But his voice was lost in the crowd's murmurs. Guests turned to him, their eyes narrowing, judging. Celeste lunged again, her face contorted. "Give it to me," she screamed, but I held the paper high, out of reach. I kept reading, my voice steady now, fueled by months of doubt. Another text from Celeste. "I'll make sure everyone knows she's not enough." The words hung in the air, raw and cruel. A woman in the back sobbed, her hand over her mouth. My best friend Nora stood, her fists clenched, glaring at Celeste. Dad's face crumpled, his head in his hands, unable to look at either of us. I pulled out my phone, my fingers shaking as I opened a file Marcus had sent. "I have more," I said, my voice cracking. A recording. I pressed play and Celeste's voice filled the room, smug and venomous, from a call with Harper. "I got him wrapped around my finger," she'd said. "Abigail's too naive to notice. And when I tell everyone, she'll be nothing." The recording ended and silence crashed down. Harper sank into her chair, tears streaming, her guilt exposed. Celeste's smirk was gone, her face pale, her hands trembling. "You planned this," I said, turning to her, my voice low, breaking. "You wanted to destroy me. Why?" My question hung unanswered, the weight of it crushing us both. Celeste opened her mouth, but no words came. The crowd was restless now, some shouting, others whispering their voices, a chaotic hum. Aaron reached for me, his eyes desperate. "Abigail." "Please let me explain," he said. but I shook my head, stepping away. His touch felt like a lie, his excuses too late. I faced the guests, my gown heavy, my heart heavier. "I didn't want to find this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I loved my sister. I trusted my husband. But here we are." The truth was out, raw and ugly, laid bare for everyone to see. Celeste stood frozen, her bravado shattered, her eyes darting like a trapped animal. I wanted to feel triumph, but all I felt was emptiness, a hollow ache where my joy had been. My wedding day, my love, my family all broken, and I was standing in the wreckage, unable to move. I'm Abigail, 29, and the air in the barn felt like it was choking me. Celeste's confession, Aaron's stammered excuses, and the weight of 200 staring guests pressed against my chest. My wedding day was in ruins, but I wasn't going to let it end like this. I turned to Celeste, her face still pale from the recording, and spoke, my voice low but firm. "You need to leave. Now." Her eyes widened like she hadn't expected me to fight back. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand, done with her words. I glanced at Sheila, my wedding planner, who stood near the entrance, her clipboard clutched tight. She'd heard everything. I nodded toward her, and she moved quickly, signaling 2 security guards stationed for the event. They approached Celeste, their faces neutral but resolute. "Let's go," Miss One said, gesturing to the door. Celeste's shoulders stiffened, her gaze darting to the crowd, searching for allies. No one moved. Not Dad, not Harper, not even the guests who'd known her charm for years. She grabbed her purse, her heels clicking as she stormed out, the guards trailing close. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft clink of a fork against a plate. I turned to the guests, my hands trembling but my resolve growing. "I'm sorry you had to see this," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But this day is mine, and I'm taking it back." A few guests nodded, their eyes soft with sympathy. Others looked away, uncomfortable, but I didn't care. I was done shrinking to make room for Celeste's chaos. I found Aaron near the head table, his face a mix of shame and panic. "We need to talk," I said, my tone sharp enough to cut through his excuses. He followed me to a small alcove behind the bar, away from prying eyes. The space smelled of oak and spilled wine, the music from the reception, a distant hum. I faced him, my arms crossed, my heart racing. "Tell me the truth, Aaron. All of it." He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes avoiding mine. "It wasn't physical," he said, his voice low. "She kept texting, flirting, saying things about you. I should have stopped it. I got caught up." "Caught up," I repeated, my voice rising. "You let her plan this, Aaron. You knew she wanted to hurt me." He shook his head, desperate. "I didn't know she'd go this far. I thought it was just talk. I was stupid, Abigail. I'm sorry." His apology felt thin, like paper tearing under pressure. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. "I can't do this here," I said. "You need to leave. Stay with your brother tonight. We'll talk later." His face fell, but he nodded, grabbing his jacket from a chair and slipping out a side door. I stood alone in the alcove, my gown heavy, my thoughts heavier. I'd sent Celeste away, pushed Aaron out, but the hurt still pulsed raw and alive. I needed more than words to fix this. I pulled out my phone and texted Marcus, the investigator, my fingers steady now. "Can you meet me tomorrow? I need everything you have on Celeste's claims." His reply came fast. 9 a.m., my office. "I have proof the pregnancy is a lie." My heart skipped, a spark of strength igniting. Celeste's final weapon was about to crumble, and I was ready to wield the truth. Back in the barn, the reception limped on guests picking at their plates, their whispers a low hum. I'm Abigail, 29, and I just sent my sister and fiancé away, but the fight wasn't over. I walked to the head table, my gown trailing, and picked up the microphone Celeste had dropped. The room hushed, eyes locking onto me. "This isn't how I imagined my wedding," I said, my voice soft but clear. "But I'm choosing what happens next. Thank you for being here. Let's eat, dance, and make something good of this night." A few guests clapped, hesitant at first, then stronger. Nora rushed over, squeezing my hand. her eyes shining. "You're incredible," she whispered. I smiled, but inside I was still steadying myself, building a new kind of strength. The next morning I met Marcus at his office, a cramped space downtown with files stacked high. My head ached from a sleepless night, but I sat tall, ready. He slid a folder across the desk, his voice calm. "Celeste faked the pregnancy test," he said. "I tracked her purchases. She bought a positive test online, never saw a doctor." I opened the folder, scanning receipts and screenshots of her search history. My chest loosened a small relief, but the sting of her intent lingered. "There's more," Marcus added. "She sent Aaron messages pushing him to doubt you, saying you were controlling. He didn't bite, but he didn't block her either." I nodded, the truth settling heavy. Aaron's weakness wasn't love for Celeste. It was cowardice. That hurt almost as much. I left Marcus's office with the folder, my steps firmer than when I'd arrived. I drove to my apartment, the city a blur outside my window. Alone, I spread the evidence on my coffee table, each page a piece of the puzzle I'd been too afraid to solve. I wasn't just fighting Celeste's lies anymore, I was reclaiming my voice. I called Nora, asking her to come over. When she arrived, I showed her the folder, my voice steady as I explained. "I need to tell the family," I said. "No more secrets." Nora hugged me, her grip fierce. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "I'm proud of you." That afternoon, I gathered Dad and Harper at my place, the air thick with unspoken questions. Dad sat on the couch, his hands clasped, his face lined with regret. Harper perched on a chair, her eyes red like she'd been crying. I stood, the folder in my hands, and started talking. "Celeste lied about the pregnancy," I said, my voice even. "She planned to ruin my wedding, and Aaron let it happen, even if he didn't go all the way." I laid out the evidence, watching Dad's shoulders slump, Harper's head bow. "I'm setting boundaries," I continued. "Celeste isn't welcome here until she faces what she did. And Aaron, I'm not sure yet, but I'm done being silent." Dad reached for my hand, his voice rough. "I should have seen it, Abigail. I always let Celeste slide. I'm sorry." His apology, so rare, cracked something open in me, but I held it together. Harper spoke next, her voice shaky. "I knew she was planning something, but I was scared to tell you. I should have been braver." I met her eyes, seeing her guilt, and nodded. "We'll work on it," I said, meaning it. The room felt lighter, like we'd cleared a fog, but the weight of my choices stayed. I walked to the window, looking out at the street below, the world moving on despite my broken plans. I'd taken the first steps, ousting Celeste, confronting Aaron, arming myself with truth. The road ahead was uncertain, but I wasn't the same woman who'd stood frozen at the altar. I turned back to Dad and Harper, my voice quiet but sure. "We're family," I said. "We'll figure this out together." Then I sat, folding my hands in my lap. The silence around me, not empty but full, holding the strength I'd found within. I'm Abigail, 29, and the days after my stand felt like walking through fog. Sending Celeste away and pushing Aaron out had shifted something, but the ground beneath me was still unsteady. I moved into a new apartment, a small one-bedroom with bare walls and creaky floors, needing space to breathe. The city outside hummed, indifferent to my choices. I unpacked boxes alone, stacking dishes, hanging a single framed photo of me and Mom from years ago. Her smile steadied me, a reminder of who I was before this storm. A week later, Aaron asked to meet. We sat in a quiet coffee shop, the air thick with the scent of espresso and rain. He looked worn, his eyes shadowed a stranger from the man I'd vowed to love. "I'm going to therapy," he said, his voice low. "I want to fix this, Abigail." I messed up letting Celeste pull me in. I nodded, sipping my latte, my heart a tangle of hope and caution. "I appreciate that," I said, "but I need time. We'll try counseling together, but not yet." He leaned forward, his hands clasped. "I'll wait," he said, and for the first time I believed he meant it. But belief wasn't trust, and I left the shop feeling lighter, yet still guarded. At home, a letter slipped under my door, the handwriting unmistakably Celeste's. My stomach knotted as I opened it. Her words were careful, polished, not the sister I knew. "I'm sorry for the pain I caused," she wrote. I was lost, jealous, wrong. Can we talk? I sat on my couch, the letter trembling in my hands, her apology stirring anger and pity. It felt like a performance, another move in her game. I called Clara, my therapist, a woman with a calm voice and sharp insights. I read her the letter, my voice tight. "It's manipulation," Clara said. "She's testing your boundaries. Don't respond until you're ready." I folded the letter, tucking it into a drawer, choosing silence over her noise. The next day, Dad called asking to visit. He arrived with a grocery bag, insisting on cooking dinner, something he hadn't done since I was a kid. We chopped onions in my tiny kitchen, the sizzle of garlic filling the air. "I've been thinking," he said, stirring the pan. I favored Celeste too long, ignored her flaws. "I failed you." His voice broke and I stopped slicing, my eyes stinging. "It's okay, Dad," I said, though it wasn't, not fully. We ate in quiet, the weight of his words settling between us, a bridge we were starting to rebuild. Harper texted, asking to meet at a park nearby. We walked under bare trees, the November chill biting my fingers. She hugged me, her scarf muffling her words. "I'm helping with a charity event," she said. "For Mom's favorite cause, cancer research. Will you join?" Her offer was timid, a step toward amends. I nodded, feeling a spark of purpose. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." But her eyes held guilt, and I wondered if she'd ever fully forgive herself for staying silent. I lay awake that night, the city's glow seeping through my blinds. Aaron's effort, Celeste's letter, Dad's regret, Harper's outreach, they were ripples from my stand, but they didn't erase the cracks. I'd drawn lines, set terms, but the world hadn't stopped spinning. I stared at the ceiling, my heart caught in a strange stillness, neither healed nor broken, just waiting for what came next. I'm Abigail, 29, and the weeks after my stand felt like holding my breath. My new apartment was a quiet refuge, but the echoes of my choices followed me. I started therapy with Clara twice a week, her office a soft haven of muted blues and bookshelves. We talked about trust, how it breaks, how it mends. "You've reclaimed your power," she said, her pen pausing. "But power doesn't erase pain." I nodded, staring at the rug, her words sinking deep. I was stronger, but the scars still ached. Aaron and I began couples counseling meeting in a sterile room with a therapist named Paul. Aaron spoke first, his voice earnest, detailing his regret, his work to change. I listened, my hands folded, searching his face for the man I'd loved. "I want this to work," I said, my tone measured. "But I don't know if I can trust you yet." He looked down, his jaw tight, and the silence between us stretched heavy with truth. We left the session side by side, but not together, our footsteps out of sync. At home, I found a voicemail from Sheila, my wedding planner turned friend. Her voice was warm, inviting me to coffee. We met at a small cafe, the walls lined with local art. Over steaming mugs, she shared her own story, a cheating ex, a public fallout, a slow rebuild. "You took control," she said, her eyes steady. "That's rare." Her words landed softly like a gift I wasn't ready to open. I smiled, stirring my coffee, but the weight of her admiration sat uneasy. Control felt fragile, like a thread I could still snap. Harper called, updating me on the charity event. "We're naming it after Mom," she said, her voice bright but nervous. "I've got sponsors lined up. Can you speak at it?" I hesitated, my throat tight. Public speaking wasn't my strength, but the cause, Mom's fight against cancer, pulled me in. "I'll try," I said, surprising myself. Harper's relief was palpable, but her pause lingered, like she was still proving herself. I hung up, staring at my phone, the event looming like a test I hadn't studied for. Dad came over again, this time with a worn journal, its pages yellowed. "It was Mom's," he said, handing it to me. "Found it in the attic. Thought you should have it." I traced the cover, my fingers trembling. That night I read it alone, Mom's words, vivid, full of love for both me and Celeste. She wrote about Celeste's fire, her need to shine, and her fear of being less. I closed the journal, my eyes wet, wishing I could ask Mom how to forgive without losing myself. The next day I walked to the mailbox, finding another letter from Celeste. This one was shorter, less polished. "I made a mistake," she wrote. "I'm getting help. Please don't hate me." I stood in the hallway, the paper heavy in my hands, her plea stirring a flicker of the sister I'd loved. But Clara's voice echoed boundaries, not bridges. I tucked the letter away, unopened wounds throbbing. I'd chosen my path, but the cost was clear: a family fractured, a marriage on thin ice, a heart still learning its own strength. I sat on my couch, the journal beside me, and let the quiet settle heavy and final. I'm Abigail, 29, and 6 months after my wedding, I stood in a community center, the air buzzing with chatter and the scent of fresh coffee. The charity event for Mom's Cancer Research Fund was underway, string lights twinkling above tables covered in white cloth. I smoothed my navy dress, my stomach fluttering as I clutched my speech. I wasn't a speaker, but tonight I'd try. Harper had poured her heart into this, and I wanted to honor Mom, to find something whole in all the broken pieces. The room filled with strangers and familiar faces, neighbors, old friends, even a few colleagues who'd been at the wedding. Aaron was there, sitting near the back, his presence quiet but steady. We'd been talking more, our counseling sessions peeling back layers of hurt and hope. He caught my eye, offering a small nod, and I felt a warmth I hadn't in months. Not trust, not yet, but a possibility, fragile and new. I stepped to the podium, my notes trembling in my hands. The crowd hushed their eyes, kind but expectant. I took a breath, my voice soft at first. "My mom taught me love is bigger than pain," I began. "She fought cancer with grace, and tonight we're here to keep her fight alive." The words flowed stronger than I'd hoped, each one a thread tying me to her memory. I spoke of her laughter, her stubborn hope, and how she'd want us to build something good. The crowd leaned in, some wiping tears, others nodding. I felt exposed but alive, my voice carrying a strength I hadn't known I had. When I finished, applause rippled through the room, warm and genuine. Harper rushed over, her eyes bright. "You were amazing," she whispered, hugging me tight. I hugged her back, feeling the weight of her guilt lifting our bond, knitting back together. Guests approached, sharing stories of their own losses, their words weaving a quiet connection. I listened, my heart full, realizing I'd given them something and they'd given me something back, a sense of purpose, a place to stand. Later I slipped outside, needing air. The night was crisp, stars faint above the city's glow. I walked to a bench, sitting alone, my breath visible in the cold. I thought of Mom, of the journal Dad gave me, her words about love and forgiveness. I'd been carrying Celeste's betrayal like a stone, but tonight, speaking her name in my speech briefly without anger, felt like setting it down. Not forgiving her, not yet, but choosing to carry less. I closed my eyes, the hum of the event distant, and let the quiet wrap around me, soft and steady. I'm Abigail, 29. And after the charity event, I drove to the cemetery where Mom rests. The morning was gray, the grass damp under my boots, the air sharp with autumn's edge. I knelt by her headstone, tracing her name etched in stone, my fingers cold but steady. I hadn't been here since before the wedding, too raw to face her absence. Now I needed her, not to fix things, but to listen. I spoke softly, my voice blending with the wind. "I'm okay, Mom. I'm finding my way." I pulled a notebook from my bag, one I'd started carrying, to jot down thoughts Clara, my therapist, suggested I name. I wrote to Celeste, not to send but to release. "You hurt me," I wrote, my pen pressing hard. "But I'm not your shadow anymore. I'm me, and that's enough." I tore the page out, folding it small, and tucked it beneath a pebble by Mom's stone. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was freedom, a weight slipping from my shoulders. Back at my apartment, I unpacked the last of my boxes, hanging a mirror I'd bought at a flea market. Its frame was chipped, but the glass was clear, reflecting my face, older, quieter mine. I rearranged my books, placing Mom's journal on the shelf, its pages no longer a wound but a map. I lit a candle, the flame flickering soft, and sat on the floor, letting the stillness settle. I wasn't whole, but I was here, building something new from the pieces. Harper called later, her voice lighter than before. Celeste moved to Chicago, she said. She's in therapy trying to change. I listened, my heart calm, no longer racing at her name. Thanks for telling me, I said, meaning it. I hoped Celeste would find her own peace, but that was her road, not mine. I hung up, glancing at the mirror again, my reflection steady. Aaron texted, asking to meet tomorrow, and I replied, sure, my fingers, sure, my mind open but guarded. I stood walking to my window, the city sprawling below, alive and indifferent. I'd carried so much: Celeste's betrayal, Aaron's failure, my own doubts. Now I was learning to set them down, not with anger but with care, like folding clothes I'd outgrown. I breathed slow, the candle's glow warm behind me, and felt a quiet I hadn't known in years, a stillness that held me whole and enough ready for whatever came next. I'm Abigail, 29, and a year after my wedding, I'm in a new rhythm. My apartment's no longer just walls. It's home with plants on the sill, their leaves catching morning light. I wake early now, brewing tea, sitting by the window to watch the city stir. The quiet suits me, a space I've carved for myself. I'm different not because the pain's gone, but because I've learned to carry it lighter, like a book I've read and shelved its lessons mine to keep. Tonight I'm hosting a small dinner, the table set with mismatched plates, candles flickering. Nora's here, her laugh filling the room, and Harper, who's softer now, less shadowed by guilt. Dad's in the kitchen, insisting on carving the roast, his gruff voice warm. Aaron's here too, sitting across from me, his presence steady but still on trial. We're trying meeting weekly with our counselor, rebuilding trust, one honest word at a time. It's slow, but it's ours. I've started working with Sheila, my wedding planner, in her event business. It's not glamorous, long hours, endless emails, but I love it. I planned fundraisers, birthdays, even a quiet vow renewal last week. Each event feels like stitching something whole, a gift I give others and myself. Last month I led a meeting pitching ideas to a client. My voice clear, no tremble. Sheila clapped me on the back after grinning. You're a natural, she said. I smiled, feeling the truth of it, a strength I'd earned. Harper's writing a book, something about family and forgiveness, inspired by our mess. She read me a chapter last week, her words raw, unflinching. It made me see us clearer, two sisters tangled in love and hurt, both human. I don't talk to Celeste, not yet. She's in Chicago rebuilding, or so Harper says. I wish her well from a distance, my boundaries firm. I've learned some doors stay closed, not out of anger, but care for myself. As we eat stories, Flo, Nora's new job, Dad's fishing trip, Aaron's attempt at baking. I listen, my heart full, not because everything's perfect, but because it's real. I've stopped chasing what should be, embracing what is. The candles burn low, wax pooling, and I lean back, my hands resting easy, the weight of last year softer now, like a tide pulling back, leaving smooth sand behind. I'm Abigail, 29, and as the dinner winds down, I clear the plates, the clink of ceramic grounding me. The room feels warm, not just from the candles, but from the people here, each carrying their own scars, their own stories. I'm not the same woman who stood at the altar shaken by betrayal. I've learned to see pain not as a thief, but a teacher carving space for something stronger. I used to think love meant holding tight, fixing everything. Now I know it's also letting go, choosing who walks beside you, and forgiving yourself for trusting too much. I step to the counter, pouring wine for Nora, my eyes catching Aaron's. He's quieter tonight, listening more than speaking, and I see his effort, not perfect, but real. I don't need him to be my everything anymore. I'm enough, and that's the gift this year gave me. I think of Celeste out there chasing her own redemption. I don't hate her. I hope she finds peace, but my heart's no longer hers to break. I've built a life that's mine, small, messy, true. The biggest lesson isn't about winning or being right. It's about standing in your own truth, even when it hurts, and finding grace in the aftermath. Betrayal showed me my limits, but it also showed me my strength, not in fighting back, but in choosing to keep going, to love anyway, to build anyway. I look around the table at faces I've chosen and feel a quiet pride. I'm here not because I avoided pain, but because I walked through it and came out whole. What's the moment that made you realize your own strength? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story. If this resonated, please subscribe, and share with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for being here, for listening. Here's to healing, to new beginnings, and to carrying our scars with grace.